Good morning and welcome to the Washington Foreign Press Center briefing. My name is Zina Wolfington and I'm the moderator of today's briefing. It is my pleasure to welcome our distinguished briefer today, Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for European and Eurasian Affairs, Yuri Kim. PDAS Kim will discuss two-year mark of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine and United States support for Ukraine. This briefing is on the record. It is being live streamed. After we hear from the Ambassador Kim, we'll begin the question and answer session. This briefing will end no later than 10:10. The FPC will post the transcript of this briefing and the video afterwards on our website, which is fpc.state.gov. And with that, I'm going to turn the floor over to the Ambassador Kim.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks very much for this opportunity to speak with you today. We're just a couple days away now from the second anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Unprovoked, unjustifiable, brutal. I thought we'd take the opportunity to talk about how we got there, the days leading up to the invasion, where we've been since then, and where we see ourselves going down the line. So, as all of you recall, in the weeks and months leading up to February 24th, 2022, we were seeing clear indications, actions that the Russians were taking that pointed towards a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, building upon the actions that the Kremlin had already taken to invade Donetsk and Luhansk, as well as the preceding action to seize Crimea. We made our information public. We shared it with allies. There was great skepticism. And of course, all of that skepticism was due to the fact that Putin denied that he had any intention to conduct a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. He lied. He lied. Since then, the expectation had been that Russia would be able to force Ukraine into quick surrender. The Ukrainians have proven themselves more than equal to the task of defending their country with everything that they've got. And so far, the United States, partners, more than 50 countries around the world have stepped up to support Ukraine's effort to defend its independence from an unprovoked, unjustifiable, brutal invasion from a neighboring country, a sovereign state attacking another sovereign state. More than that, we have the spectacle of a permanent member of the UN Security Council, a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, breaking all the rules that it helped to establish, violating sanctions, resolutions that it itself voted in favor of, and undermining the security of all of its neighbors. Not an accident that so many of Russia's neighbors now sleep with one eye open, worried. Is the action that Putin taking against Ukraine a harbinger of action that could be targeted against them? Good question to ask. Where we are today, it's clear that Putin's objective in launching this war of aggression, this war of choice, is built on fantasy. He dreams of restoring empire, dreams of restoring the Soviet Union. Who knows what else he's dreaming of? But it is sheer fantasy. That is Putin's objective. What is the objective of the United States? Our objective is to defend the rules and the principles that have undergirded the security and prosperity of the American people since the end of World War II. For more than 80 years now, for close to 80 years now, the United States and the American people have been able to prosper and to be secure based on those rules. It is essential for us to defend that system. The objective of the Ukrainians is also likewise very clear and simple. Their objective is to repel an unprovoked invasion and to assert their right to exist as a nation, as recognized by the international community. I know you probably have some questions, maybe some critiques. So let me just stop there and I'll open up the floor.
Thank you, Ambassador Kim, for your remarks. Now I would like to open this program up for questions. I will take a few questions first from the journalists in the room and then from journalists on Zoom. Please raise your hand or your virtual hand if you are on Zoom, if you would like to ask the question. If I call on you, please give your name and your outlet. And the first question, Dima, please.
Oh, thank you very much for doing this. Dmitry Novchenko, Ukrainian Television News correspondent. Madam Ambassador, I got two questions, if you will allow me. Firstly, everyone, my audience is in Ukraine, my family is in Ukraine, friends, colleagues, everyone, and everyone is concerned about the delay of the American aid to Ukraine. So what's your vision, what's your prediction, and what's your position in the State Department speaking about this package? And secondly, if I may, you mentioned the US objectives, and the main question about the US policy toward Ukraine was, do you want Ukraine to protect itself or to win the war? When President Zelensky visited Washington, I asked that question to President Biden. And firstly, during those 2 years of the war, President Biden told clearly his vision that Ukraine have to win this war. But could you share your understanding and the US Department of State position? What this victory means? What could happen? How do you see it? How it might happen? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. The objective, as far as the United States is concerned, is to enable Ukraine to win the war. It's not a war that they started. It's clearly a war that the Kremlin foisted upon a sovereign country. And we see it in our own self-interest to ensure that Ukraine wins the war. Regarding your question about supplemental and budget support, we're very heartened by the fact that after very vigorous debate in Europe, for example, the European Union was able to agree on a package of worth 50 billion euro to support Ukraine over 2024 to 2027. We are confident that the American Congress will likewise reach a wise decision. We are heartened by the fact that the measure was passed with such a wide margin in the Senate, and we're looking forward to the House taking quick action.
Next, Yaroslav, please.
Good morning, and thank you, Ambassador, for doing this. So I have actually two
Sorry, can you introduce yourself?
My name is Yaroslav Dopol. I'm working with the Ukrainian news agency Ukraine Forum. So my first question is about the peace formula of President Zelensky. Switzerland will host a global peace summit, and the question is the United States going to take part in this summit, and what level? And is the United States in a position to help Ukraine bolster international support for the peace formula? And the second question is about China. Recently, EU members states agreed to ban export to several Chinese companies, considering their collaboration with Russia. What is the US position on China's role in the Russian war in Ukraine? And is the United States going to impose new sanctions on China?
So on your, I'll take the second question first. We're likewise disturbed by reports that Chinese companies may be providing supplies to the Russian war effort, and there are sanctions in place. China is well aware of them, and we have engaged them in discussions on this topic. As I'll say no more on that. On the peace formula, we have been present from the outset. We will continue to be, but I don't have anything to announce in terms of participation.
Next question, Alex, please.
Ambassador, thanks for coming here. I want to talk on most of my colleagues' questions. We woke up today to the news that Iran might have sent hundreds of ballistic missiles to Ukraine, to Russia, in Ukraine, in a position to confirm those reports. And more broadly, while the domestic discourse might have been focused on this country, what enemy is it, is our first priority. Ukraine is right now fighting against the collective enemies of the US, China, you mentioned Iran missiles are probably in Ukraine, Russia, without American support. What is your response to that?
I'm not sure that I would characterize those countries in exactly the way that you have characterized them. But what I will say is that we've also seen those reports of arms shipments moving from Iran to Russia, North Korea to Russia. And we are taking a close look. We are tightening up sanctions to further restrict the provision of weapons and material that can support Russia's war effort. Please.
This Rabia İclal Turan from Anadolu. I have a question on NATO and argument. So NATO is expanding between the new members. Finland has already joined, and Sweden is likely to join soon. So as Washington prepares for the NATO summit in July, I was wondering if you have anything to say on the US position on Ukraine's possible NATO membership. How do you see the likelihood of Ukraine joining NATO?
The president's been very clear that we see Ukraine's future in NATO. And we, along with all the other allies in NATO, are working very closely with Ukraine to ensure that they can be as ready as possible, as quickly as possible. Please.
From Yonam's agency in South Korea, and thank you for doing this, sir. We've seen arms transaction between North Korea and Russia, and there were reports about the recent arrival of Ukrainian workers in Russia. New York Times reported that Russia has released the frozen funds, North Korean assets, in deposited in a Russian financial institution. And then we also saw a report about the delivery of a luxury car to leader Kim Jong-un. So all these are cases of violations of UN Security Council resolutions. So what do you think about all these violations? And are there any areas of violation that the US government has identified recently? And my second question is, are there any additional arms transactions between North Korea and Russia that have identified recently?
I don't have anything new to announce on that. What I will say on the issue of Russia's transactions with North Korea and with Iran is that, as you point out, these would constitute violations of Security Council resolutions that Russia itself voted for, supported. And I think it raises all kinds of serious questions about Russia's role on the international stage, its reliability, and its desire to be a leader. I think it's not an accident now that, given Russia's behavior, Putin's decisions, that Russia has now been kicked off one international organization after another. I'll give you a list: the UNHCR, the ICJ, the IMO, the OPCW, UNESCO, ITU, UNEP, the FAC, the FAO, ICAO, ECOSOC, Interpol. I'm sure there are others that I've missed. But the idea that Russia can continue to break the rules that, as a permanent member of the Security Council, it is bound to uphold is just, it's appalling. And they're going to continue to pay a price for the decisions they are making that undermine the very institutions that it is obligated to defend.
Now I will go to Zoom. If I call on you, please unmute yourself and ask your question. Robert Papa.
Yes, Madam Ambassador, MS in Albania. Is it true that NATO is going to train Ukrainian pilots in Kulchova base in Albania?
I haven't heard that.
You don't have it? And there are rumors that some tactical nuke from Turkey might be based there too.
I don't know how to respond to that. It's not anything that I've ever heard.
If is that true, that's why you're tolerated corruption of Prime Minister Rama?
I don't think I have anything to say to those questions, Mr. Papa. But I appreciate your political perspective.
Thank you, man.
Thank you for this question. I see there is a question in the chat, Zoom chat from Ralph Gore from Free Eurasia, Azerbaijan. As the war in Ukraine continues, there are concerns about the sustainability of Europe's financial support. How does the State Department assess the ability of European countries to sustain their financial assistance to Ukraine in the coming months, especially if the US reduces its support?
So I don't know that we should be commenting on others. What I can say is, as I said earlier, that we were very heartened to see the European Union commit to providing $50 billion in assistance over the next 3 years. And we are looking forward to Congress making a similarly wise decision. I would underline that the reason that the Europeans make decisions like that to support Ukraine, the reason that the United States chooses to support Ukraine is it's not because we're engaged in acts of charity. Defending Ukraine's right to exist, demanding that Russia withdraw its effort to take another sovereign country by force, to redraw boundaries that the international community recognizes. These things are in our own interest, as I pointed out. These are part of the rules and the principles that have undergirded the prosperity and security of the American people and others around the world. It is in our self-interest not to let these rules get broken. I will also point out, and I think you all know this very well, the world is watching. We are, in fact, at an inflection point, as President Biden has said, and the world is watching. Friend and foe alike are watching to see what happens in Ukraine. And I'm very confident that the United States will continue to do the right thing.
I don't see any raised hand anymore. Alex, we have time for just one more follow-up.
Follow-up, I appreciate it. In light of recent report, Ambassador, that Russia has been being serious propaganda, and that they offered the US to freeze or stop whatever you want, use the war, but the US rejected. I was wondering how much past 2 years have shaped your approach to across the conflicts, whether it's about Ukraine, Nagorno-Karabakh, pick any in our part of the world, being frozen by Russia for purpose to use them one day when they choose.
I think Russia's neighbors know better than anybody else the tactics that the Kremlin chooses to deploy in an effort to control, manipulate, suppress not only its own people, but neighboring peoples. We see these reports as well that one Russian or another suggests that it's time to go to the table. What we really need to look at, rather than words, is actions. I would remind everyone that, again, in the run-up to February 2022, the words coming out of the Kremlin were very reassuring, weren't they? They had no intention at all of invading a neighboring country. Their actions have been very, very clear. So I think we need to be serious and we need to be sober in assessing the actions that the Kremlin undertakes. We should remind ourselves of the brutal reality that this is a regime that thinks nothing of killing fathers, raping mothers, stealing children, thousands of children. We need to be serious and sober.
This ends Q&A session. Ambassador Kim, would you like to offer any closing remarks?
Thank you very much.
I would like to give my special thanks to our briefer, Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary Kim, and to all the FPC member journalists who joined us today. This concludes today's briefing. Thank you.